Hello CloudPedagogians, welcome back. From now on, we will also focus into FAQ space where we can delve into the finer details of AWS products or services. So let's jump into some of the best frequently asked questions out there right now and see what we can learn more for each AWS services that we have covered. If you have any questions, that's great. Let me know so that I can add them in my upcoming videos. Because one of the easiest ways to help each other is to simply share our knowledge. Basically, I would like to start the FAQs according to our AWS fundamental course pattern. So with that in mind, in today's session, let's start with general FAQs of AWS sign-up process. So the first question is, what is the difference between personal and professional accounts? Which account should I choose while signing up? Professional accounts are accounts that are created for a business or at an enterprise level, whereas personal accounts are created for learning and experimenting with AWS services. AWS recommends opting in for a professional account for managing production workloads and business critical dependencies. For all other activities, it is recommended signing up for a personal account. Next, what is AWS account name found on AWS signup page used for? AWS account name is the name of your account which will show up on the AWS management console. It is possible to change the AWS account name later in the AWS management console if you choose to. Next, how much does AWS actually cost? There is no cost for signing up with AWS and you only get charged for what you use. On creating AWS account, you get a discount called AWS free tier to try and experiment with the AWS services. The pricing is calculated based on the amount of services you consume beyond the free tier limit, and once you stop using these services, there are no additional costs or termination fee. Since we are in learning phase, let's talk more about the free tier. So what is the AWS free tier? The AWS free tier allows you to get hands-on experience with AWS services such as Amazon EC2, Amazon S3 and Amazon RDS, etc. The AWS free tier provides three types of offers. Some services are free to certain limit, others are free for up to 12 months. And some are short-term free trials, typically like 30 to 60 days. Next, what products or services are part of the AWS free tier program? Which products or services are perpetual free tier offerings? So, do I get access to all of them? Basically, signing up on for an AWS account, you will have free access over like 80 plus services. Some of the services like Amazon EC2, Amazon CloudFront, Amazon S3 are free for a 12-month period. Some like Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon Chime are always free. And others like Amazon Redshift, Amazon Lightsail have short-term free trials, typically like 30 to 60 days. Next, how do I ensure that I don't incur charges while using free tier? AWS Budgets is a cost control tool that allows you to create custom cost budgets that alert you when you exceed your budgeted threshold. It sends automated free tier usage alerts via email to notify you if you are projected to or actually do exceed a free tier usage limit. If you remember, that's what we did in our course when we signed up for the first time. Next, when will I start getting charged once I create an AWS account? You will be charged for AWS usage that exceeds the AWS free tier limits. AWS offer easy to set up billing alarms to monitor your AWS usage and make sure you only pay for what you want. Next, how do I decide which support plan meets my needs? Support plans are designed to give you the right mix of tools and access to expertise so that you can be successful with AWS while optimizing performance, managing risk, and keeping costs under control. Let's see the popular plans. The first one is Basic Plan. This support plan is offered for free to all accounts. These accounts get 24/7 access to forums and AWS resources. Next, Developer Plan. With this plan, you will have email access to AWS support during business hours with 12 hours response time for non-production systems. This plan should be used for early adoption, testing, and development. Next, business plan. Select this plan to get support for production workloads and business critical dependencies. With the business plan, you will have 24/7 chat, phone, and email access to AWS support with 1 hour response time for production systems. We are here today to learn about AWS infrastructure FAQs. So let's start with our questionnaires. The first one, what is global infrastructure? AWS Global Infrastructure allows you to choose how and where you want to run your workloads. And when you do, you are using the same network, control plane, APIs, and AWS services. If you want to run your application globally, you can choose from any AWS regions and availability zones. So, what are the components of global infrastructure? The first one is regions. It is a physical location around the world where there are clustered data centers. Next, availability zones or AZs. An availability zone is one or more discrete data centers with redundant power, networking, and connectivity in an AWS region. Next, edge locations or point of presence. In addition to the AWS regions and availability zones, AWS also operates a globally distributed point of presence, which are POP network. These POPs host Amazon CloudFront, a content delivery network, Amazon Route 53, a public domain name system DNS resolution service, and AWS Global Accelerator. Next, regional edge cache. Regional edge caches are deployed globally, close to the viewers, and they are located between the origin servers and the edge locations. Next, local zones. AWS local zones allow you to use select AWS services like compute and storage services, which are closer to more end users. That provides them very low latency access to the applications running locally. AWS local zones are also connected to the parent region via Amazon's redundant and very high bandwidth private network. That makes applications running in AWS local zones fast, secure, and seamless access to the rest of AWS services. Finally, wavelength zones. Wavelength zones are AWS infrastructure deployments that embed AWS compute and storage services within telecommunication providers' data centers, which are at the edge of 5G networks. So, application traffic can reach application servers running in wavelength zones without leaving the mobile provider's network. So, what are the benefits of AWS global infrastructure? First one is security. Security at AWS starts with AWS core infrastructure, custom built for the cloud and designed to meet the most stringent security requirements in the world. AWS infrastructure is monitored 24/7 to help ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of user data. Next, availability. AWS delivers the highest network availability of any cloud provider. Like each region is fully isolated and comprised of multiple AZs, which are fully isolated partitions of AWS infrastructure. Next, performance. The AWS global infrastructure is built for performance. AWS regions offer low latency, low packet loss, and high overall network quality. Next benefit, scalability. The AWS global infrastructure enables companies to be extremely flexible and take advantage of the conceptually infinite scalability of the cloud. Customers used to over-provision to ensure they had enough capacity to handle their business operations at a peak level of the activity. Next, flexibility. The AWS global infrastructure gives you the flexibility of choosing how and where you want to run your workloads. And when you do, you are using the same network, control panel, APIs, and AWS services. If you'd like to run your application globally, you can choose from any of the AWS regions and availability zones. Next, global footprints. AWS has the largest global infrastructure footprint of any provider, and this footprint is constantly increasing at a significant rate. When deploying your applications and workloads to the cloud, you have the flexibility in selecting a technology infrastructure that is closest to your primary target of users. AWS is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud offering, with millions of global users depending on it every day. To build a sustainable business for AWS customers, they are designing the data centers. So that's all for today's session. Meet you again in my next session. Until then, take care.